All right. So here we are again, looking at the Morningstar Investing Classroom, and the idea of today is to pass through the introduction to the market downturns and recovery. So understand is the reason why we look at this historical data, especially for investors that have long time horizons or long-term goals such as retirement, to see how the market performs and also how risk decrease over time. So uh, I began to look at the market contraction and expansion, and in the last 49 years, or in the past 49 years, there have been 10 market downturns. And that is a contraction phase of a stock market cycle. And what cycle means is a complete round in price stock fluctuation. These cycles may vary in length and duration. So, for example, this contraction phase or cycles, uh, which is in the case of a contraction, is where the market stock price decline, for me to speak, to 10% or more. And yeah, so this decline seems to happen at random and last for varying time period. But it's important to understand it, to look at them, all right, to be prepared for those contractional phase that that is high likely to happen, okay, and also understand what is an expansion, which measure is the recovery of an index at the very bottom of the contraction to its previous peak, and then the subsequent performance until the next peak or until the next peak level before another 10% decline. So the idea of this is that it is important that you understand that the stock market move in cycles, period of expansion, or the moment of when a or the recovery of an index, or or a period of contraction, which is a decline in the stock price peak from 10% or more. So it is important to understand that these cycles may happen, so you can make better decisions uh, based on this historical data. And I also look at a couple of concepts such as recovery and index and recoveries along upswing in price security following a long decline. The term is also used to describe is the upswing or of the boom of economic nation's activity. And an index is a statistical reference of investments expressed as a percentage in a period of time. The whole idea of the index is to measure progress. So we have, for example, a broad-based index, and by broad-based we mean is weight capitalized market cap index that is designed to reflect the stock market movement of a group of stocks or an entire market. So this broad-based index, or the term itself, the broad-based index, is that it's used to describe or is designed to reflect the movement of a group of stock or the whole market. An example of that are the average Dow Jones, the average Dow Jones Industrial Index. I think is this the Dow Jones. That's right. Is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This measure is 30 companies. You also have is the Standard and Poor 500 that measure the top 500 company in the U.S. market, and the Wilshire 5000, and also the Russell 3000. So you have is the Russell 3000 and the Wilshire 5000, where they measure the Russell measure the Russell 3000 index. It measures the performance of the 3,000 largest publicly held companies. Again, I'm still looking and learning of this, whereas the Wilshire 5000 uh, is a market capitalization weight index of the market value of all the American stock actively traded in the United States. So the Wilshire measure is the whole, it's a market capitalization weight index of the market value of all the American stock publicly traded or actively traded in the United States. The Russell 3000 measures the performance of the 3,000 largest publicly held companies. The 5,000, the Standard and Poor 500 measures the 500, and the average Dow Jones, which measure is uh, 30 companies. Again, all of those index, okay, all of those index, the whole idea, according to Morningstar, is to measure progress. So then I look at the market downturns and recoveries, where is here. The point of this is, again, looking at historical data of the past downturns and recovery, so you can see how, yes, yeah, so you can see how, or you can get a better picture of how the market performed. So yes, the most severe depression, it was in 2019 to 1932. The downturn lasts 34 months. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That's actually 2 years and a half. Following by a long recovery of 151 months, roughly 12 or 30 years. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That's an entire generation, almost. So, yes, so there have been many US equity like this. So there have been many US equity market downturns over time. And by equity, we mean is the total asset minus liabilities. And this is very important to understand about this equity. Uh, the total asset minus liabilities, the net worth of a company, the amount of a company once owns according to how much stock he or she has, or the value of a property minus its lien. So, so the equity is the total asset minus liabilities. The net worth of a company, the amount of a company once owns, according to how much stock he or she has, okay, is the piece of the pie that you own from the company, okay, is a piece of the pie or a piece of the pizza, or it's a slide of a pizza pie that you own from the company, and the value of a property minus its liens. It's funny because the first definition is total asset minus liabilities, and the last one is the value of a property minus its liens. And when I look at liens, okay, which is a right, liens, from the Wikipedia. So it's a legal right to possess someone or another property until a debt is required. Oh, sorry. I recently wake up. I recently wake up. Okay. So a lien is a legal right to possess another property until a debt is repaid or an obligation is met. So the most common type of liens are bank liens, judgment lien, mechanic lien, real estate liens, and tax lien. So let me read about this. So there are many types of liens and lien holders. Liens can be put in place by financial institutions, governments, and small business. Below are some of the most common liens. Bank lien. A lien is often granted when an individual takes out a loan from a bank to purchase an asset. For example, if an individual purchases a vehicle, the seller will be paying using the borrower funds from the bank. In turn, the bank will be granted a lien on the vehicle. If the borrower does not repay the loan, the bank may execute the lien, seize the vehicle, and sell it to repay the loan. Important. If the borrower does repay the loan in full, the lien holder, the bank, then releases the lien, and the individual owns the car free and clear of any liens. Allegedly. Allegedly. Bank lien. Okay? Judgment lien. A judgment lien is a lien placed of an asset by the court, which is usually as a result of a lawsuit. A judgment lien could help a defendant get paid back in the non-payment case by liquidating the acquisite asset. Okay, it's a lien of an asset by the court. Mechanics lien. A mechanics lien can be attached to real property if the owner fails to pay a contractor for service rendered. The old trusty one. If the debtor never pays, the contractor could go to court and get a judgment against the non-paying party, whereby property or asset can be auctioned off. To pay the lien holder. Many service providers have the option to place a lien to secure payment, including construction companies and dry cleaners. But again, a mechanic's lien can be attached to real property if the owner fails to pay a contractor for service rendering. It is funny because in the digital sphere there is no lien. There is so a lot of people is can jump and go and say, yeah, okay, take care, bye, period. When it comes to terms and terminations, like quickly, fast. When it comes to someone else repay their debt, It's a whole entire different process. Real estate lien. A real estate lien is a legal right to seize, own, and sell real estate property if a contract is not fulfilled. Some real estate liens are automatically put in place, such as in the case of a mortgage lien. When a party borrows money from a bank to purchase their home, the bank places a lien on the house until the mortgage is paid off. However, some real estate liens are due to non-payment to a creditor or financial institution, and as a result, are involuntary and non-consensual lien. Mm. Tax lien. There are also several statutory liens, meaning liens created by law instead of those created by a contract. Okay. These liens are very common in the field of taxation, where laws often allow tax authorities to put liens on the property of delinquent taxpayers. For example, municipalities can use liens to recover unpaid property taxes. In the United States, if a taxpayer becomes delinquent and does not demonstrate any indication of paying own taxes, the Internal Revenue Service may place a legal claim against the taxpayer property, including the taxpayer homes, vehicle, and bank accounts. Oh my God. A notice of federal tax lien notifies creditor of the government claims and can lead to sheriff sales. A sheriff sale is a public auction whereby assets are repossessed, sold, and the generated funds are used to repay a debt to a creditor, bank, or the IRS. A sheriff sale is a public auction. Auction is una oferta pública. In Spanish is subasta. Una subasta pública. A tax lien also affected the taxpayer ability to sell existing assets and obtain credit. The only way to release a federal tax lien is to fully pay the tax owed or reach a settlement with the IRS. The IRS has the authority to seize the taxpayer assets who ignore a tax lien. Typically, the IRS uses liens for delinquent taxes as a last resort, following all other options being exhausted, such as collection, installment, repayment plans, and settlement. Mm, So this is from the USA, and I think that most of those other countries, for example in South America, they follow is that up to a certain point, some others and don't, but the whole idea is that it's like, but the whole idea is that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But again, so a lien is a legal right, right. It's a legal right to possess another's property until a debt is repaid or an obligation is met. An obligation is met. An obligation is met. Then you have type of liens: bank lien, judgment liens, mechanics liens, real estate lien, and tax lien. Uh, so I'm looking at this because As I saw that on the historical data of the downturns and recovery on the market, that they have many type of liens and lien holders. Uh, that yeah, so the U.S. equity may fail or have failed their price several times, and equity is unlike a capital, which is a form of cash or it's a wealth in the form of cash or property that allow you to earn income. Equity is your net worth, is how much you own of a company, the total of shares, is the amount of assets minus its liabilities, and in a property is the property value minus its lien. This legal rights that someone else have to seize your so is this is legal right that someone else has to possess your property until the debt is repaid or the obligations uh, or an obligation is met. Mhm. And there's different type of liens or gravámenes, liens or gravámenes. Gravámenes en español, gravámenes. Mm, mm, Lien or gravámenes. So keep reading of this, of the equity here. So there have been many U.S. equity market returns over time with varying levels of severity and different length of recovery. So there have been many U.S. equity downturns uh, with different levels of severity and length of recovery. Severity and length of recovery. So the most severe downturn marked at the start of the Great Depression, a period about 10 years beginning in October 1929, during which many people lost their job and many companies went out of business. Throughout the war, desperate unemployed workers took their family on the road to look for work. When stocks lost over 80% of their value, Jesus, what in this case, the recovery period was over 12%. In this case, the recovery period was over 12 years. The more recent stock lost 40.47 of their value during the early 2000 bear market. This recovery period, lasting 4 years, was the second longest in history. Stock lost 50.9% during the recent 2007-2009 bear market. This downturn lasts 16 months, and the stock market recovered after 37 months in March. So the recovery period in the 2000 bear market lasts 4 years, and in 2008 it lasts 38 months, which is roughly 12.4 divided by 12 months. You have 3 years. Damn, son. Okay. Damn, son. Okay, okay. Okay. Mm, and the things to know is stocks are prone to sudden loss in value for many different reasons. Which reasons? Exactly. Many different. Uh, hmm. Investors should have patience. The recovery period may be painfully long. Often, the decline is preceded by a period of high return. Yet the recovery period may be painfully long. Often, the decline is preceded by a period of high return, which lulls investors into a false sense of security because no one can predict market decline. Well, certainly, a diversified portfolio may be the best solution for long-term investors who is concerned about both return and risk. And especially if you don't have a huge amount of assets or cash, so maintain a diversified portfolio, perhaps in cash, or and if you live, for example, in South America countries, uh, you may want is to invest your money or your assets by purchasing is some more stronger currency, perhaps euros or dollars, as a way to diversify your portfolio. Diversify here your portfolio, right? With cash. Mm. So this is something interesting to understand, okay? That there have been many U.S. equity market downturns with varying level of severity and length of recovery. And the most severe downturn marked the start of the Great Depression, at least that we have records. And when stock lost over 80% of their value, in this case, the recovery period was over 12 years. More recent stock lost 44.7% of their value during the early 2000 bear market. This recovery period lasting 4 years and was the second longest in the history. Stock lost 50.9% during the recession 2007-2009 bear market. This in turn lasts for 16 months. The downturn lasts for 16 months and the stock market recovered after 37 months. Damn, so even though that you read this, even though that you read this, it's a huge amount of time, man. It's huge amount of time. It's huge amount of time. It's huge amount of time. Um, and it is especially painful for any company or individual where they don't have any asset or they live their life daily, right? They live their life daily. They live their life daily. Yeah, they live their life daily. And most of us are on that, you know. Most of us are on that line. where we live our life daily. So of course you don't have time to think about uh, more or better problems. Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Hmm. So there have been many US. So there have been many downturn. Or there have been many U.S. equity market downturn with varying different level of severity and length of recovery. Severity and length of recovery. And the most severe downturn market, or the most severe downturn mark at the start of the Great Depression, when the stock lost over 80% of their value. It's just fucking Christ, 80% of the value. Even though that I read that, it's like one thing is to read about it, and the other is that you feel that. So when the stock lost over 80% of the value, so that's one of the things. So that's one of the reason why the first, the Second World War began. That's one of the reasons why people with that in Germany, they align to that. They have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Or few to lose. Exactly. Because those people that were in charge, it is pretty fucked up, man. Those people that were in charge to control the market, they privatized gains and socialized losses. And that is the great entry point for any populist leader or radical leader. For any radical leader. So the Great Depression, when the stock lost over 80% of their value, 83%, 83.4%, Jesus fucking me. And in this case, the recovery period was over 12 years. The recovery period was over 12 years, starting from July 1932 to January 1945. During the oil embargo, mhm, and in this case, the recovery period was over 12 years. More recently, stock lost 44. Yeah, more recently, stock lost 44.7% of their value during the early 2000 bear market or during the dot-com bubble. This recovery period lasting 4 years and was the second in history. Stock lost 50.9% during the recent 2007-2009 bear market or the banking crisis. Uh, the banking debt and the banking debt crisis, and this in turn lasts for 16 months, and the stock market recovered after 37 months in March 2012. So things to know, stocks are prone to sudden loss in value for many different reasons. So with this huge overview, and giving time to me to understand and pondering these ideas, uh, I'll see you in the next video.